think we're live. All right. Um, Thank you for joining.
hmm
I know it's late. It's 10:47. I don't know where you guys are at. I know Brendan, you're in Alabama. Reggie, you're
In Texas.
in Texas. Okay, so we're decently close. I'm in North Carolina. I'm at school. And it's fairly late at night. Thank you guys for joining.
hmm
So why don't we start with introductions? I'll, go very quickly. Obviously, you guys know I'm Limmy. I'm a junior at Duke University studying neuroscience, and I make videos for high schoolers applying to college. Brendan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Brandon. I'm a senior in high school now. Um, I got recently got accepted into Dartmouth College, and I'll be attending there next fall. I intend to major in biomedical engineering and minor in global health or anthropology. Haven't really decided yet, but I know for sure it's probably going to be biomedical engineering.
Awesome. Great combo. Reggie?
Hi, I'm a senior in Texas. I go to an international private high school. But I'm going to be a incoming freshman at Columbia University in New York. I'm really excited. I was actually one of the first people at my school to ever get into Columbia. We're pretty young, so I'm pretty excited.
Congrats.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, yeah, so I tried a couple different formats. So the way this is going to work is that we will talk about whatever the hell we feel like talking about. I'm gonna have no structure. Feel free to say whatever you want, however the way you want it, right? Um, so it's more of a conversation, I guess, instead of me interrogating you guys on how you guys got into college. Although, there's definitely going to be a good number of aspiring juniors that are looking to get advice from you guys. So I guess we can start there. Um, it's the most simple, right?
Yep.
What kind of experiences did you guys have in high school that you think was most impactful? One, to your growth as a person. Um, I think it's really interesting to hear about that. And then also, of course, what do you think helped you get into Dartmouth and Columbia, respectively?
All right, so I guess I'll start. So long story short, I did like a summer research internship at a local research university here in my state. I believe it was an 8 week experience, and each of us we were paired with a different mentor. My mentor was a pediatric surgeon, and he studied NEC or necrotizing enterocolitis. And basically, my task was to determine if stress or like cortisol, or like if you have increased cortisol, does that affect the outcome of a mother's baby, or does that affect like if her placental function, etc. So I used HGR8 cells and applied cortisol to them to see if it would affect their proliferation rate, if their growth would be stunted, if cell death occurred, etc. And I put together a presentation. And at the end of this 8 week experience, I presented this in front of the university. And now we're working out some final details to get it published. Um, I feel like that was definitely something that boosted me to the top, because it's not very often that you see high school students with undergraduate research, and definitely getting a head start on that. I think that that's something that they want to see. You know, somebody that's not necessarily dead set on the academics, but they're going out and doing more things within their community, and provide giving something back to the scientific community.
Reggie?
Yeah, I can go next. I think there were two main things that got me into Columbia and I think were most impactful in my high school career. Number one, I think, was speech and debate. I was ranked in within the top 50 in the United States for Lincoln Douglas debate at the peak of my career. I think I ended up at like number 38 in the United States. Especially coming from a school that didn't really have a speech and debate program, I was kind of competing on my own. We didn't really have an established coach. And I've done it since 8th grade as well. So I've shown like commitment 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. And honestly, like I didn't start winning until like my junior year of high school, where I qualified to the Tournament of Champions, which is like the debate tournament in the United States. And I was the first person from my school to ever qualify in my event. And I was also one of the only Latinas there at the TOC, as well as one of the only Indigenous people there as well. So I thought I got like a really cool and unique experience out of debating. But I think the second thing that really pushed me over the edge is I had an internship at the United Nations over the summer. I was part of the Paraguayan mission to the United Nations, which is my own home country. It was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. I spent a month in New York at the UN. I attended meetings. I even wrote a note to the Secretary General. I helped organize a friendship day that had over 200 guests in attendance, including very important ambassadors, diplomats from all over the world. I thought that that experience was really eye opening for me, and it really pushed me to study my major, which is political science with a focus on international.
Wow, that's amazing. Um,
Very.
so why political science and what drove your interest towards debate and of course your internship at the UN?
I think that there were when I started off doing debate, it was very much like people were telling me that I couldn't do it, right? The coach that we did have at the middle school level, he no longer goes to the school, but he didn't really like me. I was like the only girl on the team. He didn't really want to help me, but I ended up consistently outperforming everybody at the school. And then when I got to the high school level, I was really driven to sort of debate, but on my own terms, right? So we would have a topic every 2 months. It was very straightforward, but I wanted to do something differently. So in every single debate round, I talked about settler colonialism, I talked about indigenous oppression, talked about Latino oppression, and that really kind of like defined who I was as a debater. And by the time I got to my junior year of high school, I was like beating the top competitors with my affirmatives, with my negatives, and that ended up really, really being fun. And it was kind of like an exercise of one, just like reading cool stuff. I ended up reading a lot of like critical race theory, and that kind of pushed my interest to more like the humanities level where I would speak in debates, I would have to write a ton, I would have to work a ton. It's about like I would say like 24 to 48 hours of straight prep just to do well at tournaments, which is an insane amount of work. But what really pushed me to study international relations was my personal background. Paraguay is a really small country in South America, and my grandfather was an ambassador of Paraguay to Mexico. And he passed away before I was born, but it was really like him was an inspiration of how what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. So I managed to get the internship at the UN, and I was exposed to international relations, and I really, really loved it. I think that the world of diplomacy is really intricate, really interesting, and I think it's a world that I would excel in.
So typically when you look at people that are successful in their clubs, you look at, I'm sure, at the TOC, you've run into a lot of competitors that went to, you know, well-funded high schools, etc., right? So you said that your school didn't really have a debate team, and so, this was the first year that you guys went to TOC, right?
Hmm.
So what was it? So typically, you have most students will have upperclassmen to look up to and to talk about their experience and to gain some insight on how TOC works and how debate works at these levels. And you didn't have those opportunities, but you were still able to make it and, still do well, right? So what was that experience like and what did that feel like?
I think that starting off, it puts you at a really big disadvantage. All the like top competitive schools are in Texas. Like for example, Straight Jesuit is like I think one of the best schools for debate is like right across the street, from my school. So it was really big on the fact that we were really under resourced. It was really just me doing the prep work, like me and my private coach. But my private coach, who knew the situation, kind of coached me at a very discounted price, which I was really, really grateful for. And so together we really, really worked hard, sort of getting the preparation done, getting the work done, practicing every day, and it was completely like self-driven. But I would say that it wasn't just me. You know, there were other people in my class, in my grade, who were also working really, really hard for speech and debate. I have a friend, Alex, who did Congress, who ended up he actually got accepted into Cornell ED as well. And so like we really worked hard to make the speech and debate program a real thing. And then this year, my last year debating as a senior, we actually convinced the school to hire us a formal coach. So now we have a formal coach and we're starting to get more funding for that. And I'm really happy to see sort of like the program live on beyond this because we didn't have any upperclassmen. And what really drove me at the end of the day was one, I loved winning, and two, I love spreading the message. You know, there were a ton of like private school kids, especially like a ton of like white American private school kids who thought like the biggest issue in the world was like, you know, like some BS argument, right? When there were real people talking about real issues in the debate round, and I was finally winning on it, and it was a really, really fun and like life changing experience.
You're gonna be a legend. They're gonna know your name. You're gonna be the one that solidified debate at your school. That's awesome, Reggie. Amazing. Brandon, so why public health and anthropology? And what led you to your research experience? And are you pre-med or
I
just
am.
interest? You are pre-med. So what led to your interest in those disciplines?
So like a lot of pre-med applicants, I grew up watching Grey's Anatomy, like these healthcare shows. And that is really what, kind of got me interested in the healthcare field. But I really didn't know, the depth of the field. I only saw what was shown on TV. Like, just these trivial, really, really extravagant surgeries, the drama in the hospital, all the stuff going, crazy things going on in Grey's Anatomy. But I realized that maybe I should do a little more digging. I went on YouTube and found a bunch of people who, like doctors who would do the day in my life videos, and I saw that Grey's Anatomy wasn't really what I thought it was. But I also looked at these day in the life videos and were like, that looks kind of boring. They're doing the same thing every day, like every single day they're doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. Nothing like Grey's Anatomy. So it kind of led me to kind of want to find out for myself. Um, so I did start going to my hospitals, kind of volunteering, looking at, just kind of getting my foot in there, seeing what I can observe. And I really did see a lot of inequities in our healthcare system. And that is kind of what led me to do, a little bit more research on the topic. And one thing that I found really, really, really important to me was I'm sure you guys have probably heard about it, but like the pulse oximeters. On African American people, they are highly inaccurate due to the pigment of our skin compared to lighter toned people. And there hasn't been an alternative to this yet. And I'm sure that there's other devices or other things that also aren't accurate for people of darker complexions. So I researched and I saw came across biomedical engineering, and that's kind of what made me want to design products. So by looking at those pulse oximeters, it's like, wow, these aren't working. We need to find an alternative. And I saw nothing on the internet, right? So that made me kind of want to. I kind of figured, maybe I have to do it myself. So that's kind of what got me interested in biomedical engineering. Um, Later on throughout my high school career, I believe around junior year, I started scouring the internet for like some actual internships that I can do, getting me inside of a hospital, inside of surgeries, inside of an operating room, seeing, how it really is. And that's when I came across the prison program at a hospital near me, University of Alabama at Birmingham. Um, I studied under a pediatric surgeon, like I said earlier, studying that, and I also got some very critical surgical exposure as well. So I did the lab research as well, and I was in the operating room, listening and getting exposure to all the different healthcare fields. And there was a biomedical consultant in whoop, one of the operating rooms. So it kind of got me exposed to like, wow, it's not just doctors in the operating room, it's not just nurses, it's not just surgical techs, it's also people who are designing these products, and that's what got me into biomedical engineering.
Dedication. Um,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Um, so I guess sort of segueing into the next topic. This is a common question that a lot of high schoolers have. Um, what did you guys write about in your essays?
Uh, shall I go first?
Go
I
ahead,
can go
Henry
if you
or
want,
Reggie.
but go ahead.
Okay, Reggie, you can go.
Okay. So I actually had them pull up just so I don't forget everything. But for my common application essay, I talked about my indigenous background, my Guarani background. In specific, I talked about like certain connections to different words. Like for example, ifra. If means earth and ra means it will become. Ifra means that which will become the earth. Then I talked about like what that means to me and how like Guarani epistemology and the words that we use in my native language kind of translated to different things. So in this case, that meant that, just like individuals form the future of the community, a tree is not just a singular being, right? And how like this sort of obligation has been going on. But I also talked about my struggles as finding myself and finding my purpose. I talked about my family background, how we come from like a pretty prominent political family in Paraguay, and how I kind of grew up away from that, and like how I was struggling to find my place and who I wanted to be. So again, I searched my roots and I found this word named Teco Saso. And it meant Teco means our way of being, Sa means chain, and So means to cut or break. It literally translates to exist in a state of cutting that which binds you or keeps you being free. So in Guarani philosophy, freedom requires an action. That action must be to actively resist oppression. And like with this realization, I kind of realized like one, like the struggles my family had. We had my mom went under a dictatorship in Paraguay. We fought the Brazilians in the Triple Alliance War, which decimated the country, where we only had about like 50% of our population after the war. And how like all of these like burdens and responsibilities my family took on in the past, it is now my turn to carry on those burdens, because I realized that, I could feel lost in my purpose and what I wanted to do, but at the end of the day, it all falls back to like our shared and beautiful indigenous language of Guarani, and how the words that we use and the words that I learned helped me understand who I was meant to be and who I wanted to be. And I talked about how like my discovery of my own heritage led me to like form different clubs. Like I had the mock trial clubs. I helped fund speech and debate. I had the Spectrum Club to fight for LGBTQ rights, the Cyclops Club where we did voting rights. I talked about how that led me to my internship at the UN, where I wanted to do something real and physical for my country, and how I wanted to sort of like change the world doing that. So it was really sort of a very much like imagery based, uh, heritage based question. I used obviously the prompt that was some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. I really like the ending of my Common App essay. Every day I saw the world more through my grandfather's eyes. I'm now determined not just to live up to his legacy, but to ensure it expands for centuries beyond. And it was really him that was like the catalyst to everything that I wanted to do. I never met him, but he fought against a dictatorship my mom experienced every single day, went to jail for it, was sent away to Mexico as an ambassador, as like, you're a political headache, go away. And he managed to make a name for himself and do better and do good for his country. And I really wanted to be like, that was kind of long, but that's my Common App essay. I think for my Columbia specific essays, I talked about the international school that I go to. I go to the number one most diverse private school in Texas, and I think number eight in the United States. So I talked about how it was different interacting with people from different backgrounds. I'm Latina, so I am very like physically affectionate, very loving, versus I have friends who are from like the Middle East, right? So I talked about a story about how I accidentally kissed one of my friend's dad on the cheek who was from Iran, which was like a horrible like cultural sin on my part, and I was like mortified. But we ended up having a really good conversation, and we talked about how like he was raised in a dictatorship and my mother was raised in a dictatorship, and how that kind of shaped like who me and my friend were and how they are as people. My second essay was about my internship at the United Nations and all that entailed. And then my like funny like what brings you joy essay is it's really short, it's really cute. My brother adopted a cat named Missile Launcher. I didn't expect to be charmed by her blue eyes and soft purrs, yet her company brings me comfort and her antics bring me joy. So yes, I have a cat named Missile Launcher, and she brings me a lot of joy. But yeah, those were my essays.
Okay, so two things. One, you're very eloquent, very well spoken. Um, you would make a great lead. And two, the the personal essay, the one where you talked about the names, that's really interesting. How did you come up with that?
So I actually read a former alumni from the school's essay. She got into Rice University, and she talked about like what words meant in her culture, and I think it was like Vietnamese. And that kind of inspired me to sort of like dig into my past and what I know and what I've learned, and how that kind of connected to the things that I wanted to do in life. I always knew that my background played a huge role in who I wanted to be, but I really wanted to tell a story of how like the specific words that I discovered at different points of time in my life changed me into the person that I am.
Awesome. Brandon?
All right, so my essays were kind of all over the place. My Common App essay, I think, was probably the best essay that I've ever written. It took me, I want to say, 4 weeks and a half, maybe. Once I found out that the Common App wasn't changing their prompts for the next year, I started like it's I started at least 2 months ahead, kind of writing out my ideas, thinking about what I wanted to write about. The introduction of my Common App essay is it's kind of a weird one. I start off by describing what cells are. Like it's literally just cells, then give their definition. Then I build off of that and kind of explain how cells are battling like diseases and viruses every day, but they didn't create the viruses, but they're still fighting them off, and they still have a way to get around them. And then I tie that into to humans, to how we work. We fight viruses, but these viruses we have created, and these viruses come in like socioeconomic factors, racism, big pharma, institutionalism, things like that. And I kind of tie these big problems that people kind of overlook to a disease and how that disease is plaguing us now. Um, I use the prompt. Um, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time where you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experiment? From the experiment. Um, after I kind of talked about the cells and how that ties into to our personal qualities to society, I talked about how my life too has been shaped by these same viruses that affect our society. How me being, African American in a predominantly white, like southern city. When I first moved here, you could probably count the amount of African Americans here when I first moved here. So you could imagine how that was. People people seeing you being the first inside of a class, inside of an AP classroom, or you being the first to be in an honors class. Um, that definitely affected me and it stuck with me. And I talked about that in my essay, how that with me fighting these viruses or these diseases, how I was still able to overcome that by setting an example for those that came after me. Despite the discrimination that I faced or, the harsh words that I endured, I still went and, joined these clubs that you don't really see African Americans in. Like I was in a leadership club, in our school, we're usually, sports or whatever. And I've heard that a lot. It's like when I first joined this leadership club, they were like, "Why aren't you out there on the football team?" And it's something that when you first hear it, you're kind of shocked. You're like, what's that supposed to mean?" And with me, I was in like fourth grade at that time, so I didn't really understand it until a few years later when I look back on it. And I definitely applied that to my essay and tied that into our a bigger societal issue that we still face today. Um, I believe in the next few paragraphs, I then started talking about my research, which was on HGRA cells. So I tied my first paragraph was a general overlook of cells. The second one was about how humans do the same things as cells, but ours are created. And then I tied that into the cells that I did in my research. So it kind of all flows together. It's all about cells, but if you're reading it, you see that that is also talking about a bigger picture that we don't see. Um, Mine wasn't too long at all. I think I was 20 words above, 20 words below the word cap, and that was for the Common App essay. For my Dartmouth specific essays, now I don't know how this works for other universities, but for Dartmouth specifically, most of their written prompts are more target to why you fit into their school. It kind of takes more emphasis off of like your personal like qualifications, et cetera. You're now selling. They've gone past you getting into the school, right? They're trying to see where you fit in at specifically. And one of Dartmouth's short and response questions was about the boy who harnessed the wind, and it asks what drives you to create and what do you hope to make or have you made. And this prompt was actually perfect for me because, as I said earlier, I want to study biomedical engineering. So I tied in all of these things that I observed into my internship to, my drive for wanting to create medical products. I tied this in together and then also cited some sources from the National Academy of Engineering and how they have like these 14 grand challenges, right? I said the 14 grand challenges offered by the National Academy of Engineering are all needed, but a 15th challenge needs to be added, ensuring that the technology and advancements created by the 14th remain accessible to all who need them. So I tied that into socioeconomic factors. Um, this entire prompt was basically um, trying to summarize like yes we do have we have medical solutions to some of our issues, but you're hiding them behind the paywall. So I'm trying to find I found like a unique balance between you know having medicine, having the solutions to problems, and us not having a solution to it, and kind of meeting somewhere in the middle. um, I really enjoyed that prompt, and I think it'll be it it did take me a while to get this one the way I liked it as well because of how in depth the question is. But I think it's something that once you get into it, you'll enjoy writing about it. Um, and the next one was just basically asking about um, why Dartmouth, basically. What about Dartmouth makes them stick out from all the other Ivy Leagues, from all the other universities in our nation? And I specifically talked about their trivial relationship with professors. Like Dartmouth has the smallest class size. They admit the fewest students out of all the Ivy Leagues, and they have a 5-to-1 student faculty ratio. So all of the classes are 30 under, even for the intro classes. So I talked about how you're going to build these strong relationships with your professors and how these relationships can take you further than just you sitting in an intro class, sitting in there for the grade. You're taking that relationship out of a Dartmouth setting and applying that, you know, out of that institution.
So you mentioned that you wrote about your experience being one of the few African Americans in your suburban town in Alabama.
hmm
Tell me more about what that experience was like. Did that also continue into high school as well?
it kind of curved off when I got into high school because the our city became more diverse. We're one of the fastest growing cities in our county, and I think we're like number 9 in the state on in the fastest growing cities. So we're expanding really big. Our high school has like 8 portables outside. So
Oh,
with
wow.
that being said, of course the diversity has increased, especially when I got into middle school. It definitely increased a lot. It was mainly like those elementary, you know, intermediate settings where it definitely wasn't many. I can cite specifically what I said in my essay. Let me go to it really quick. I said, like cells, we too fight viruses, but of our own design. These viruses manifest through racial inequities embedded within our country's foundation, chipping away at our founders' promise that all men were created equal. Since conception, my life has been shaped by viruses, These viruses have looked like accusing stares from managers at retail stores, like being the only person of color in my AP classrooms, like slurs and hatred directed at young children too innocent to understand the invisible yokes locked around their necks. Growing up, I felt powerless to change the disparities around me. However, through research, I have discovered a sense of empowerment by using my knowledge to not only explore systemic inequities, but to subvert them. So that's basically how I kind of tied that into my essay.
Um, I'm out of questions.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see. I'm trying to imagine, myself if I were in the shoes of a high school student, um, looking to apply to college, what kind of questions I would have. We can cover this one very quickly. So, oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
Regi.
I think I was just quickly gonna add, which is one thing that did surprise me and my parents, is I applied test optional to Columbia, and like I got an ED. But I think that when you apply test optional, there are certain caveats that you have. Like I got the PSAT Hispanic Scholar Award, so I performed really well in the PSAT, but I decided not to submit my SAT or my ACT scores. I also think that I submitted my IB diploma scores, which I ended up getting a predicted 43 out of 45. So I kind of use that to substitute my test optional, and I think that's an option that like more students should know about.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, what were your guys' stats in high school? If you guys are comfortable
Yeah, I was
sharing.
kind of waiting. Yeah, I was kind of waiting on this question. Um, had a 4.0 GPA. I didn't submit any tests. I took the ACT once. Um, I had over 700 community service hours. Um, I was president of FBLA, president of NHS, um, SGA president at one point. I'm a student ambassador. I'm on the Principals Advisory Council. Um, I'm also like an interim board member on our city council. I raised over $5,000 for our FBLA. And I also was a founding member of the Eagle Eye Network. So basically, we would live stream basketball and football games, and then stream these to citizens in our county, of our city, and they paid like $5 to access it per month, and we were able to give them access to these games like when we were like an hour and a half away, and we had like over 400 viewers every time that we streamed them. Um, I took all AP classes when I entered high school. My school did not offer many, and I think that applies to a lot of rural schools. Um, I didn't have any AP. There weren't any AP offerings my freshman year, but I did take all honors except math. Um, my sophomore year, I got hit by COVID, and I was remote. I took all honors, everything, and got all A's. That surprisingly remote. Um, and I took AP, AP Chemistry, AP Honors Biology, um, all AP History, and all AP English. Um, when I got into my junior year, I took AP Biology and maxed out on all of my science credits. I also went to a trade school offered in my county, studying biomedical sciences. So I got 2 extra science credits per year. So I got 4 extra science credits total on top of the um, mandate required by the state. Um, and there I took the biomedical sciences program because at the end we are eligible to take a CCMA exam, which is the Certified Clinical Medical Assisting exam. And I'll be taking that in around 2 weeks and a half. So I'll be 18 with that certification, and that allows me to work anywhere in the United States, in a hospital, in a clinical setting, office setting. It doesn't really matter. I can use that. It's kind of a broad scope of practice. So I can use that, and that'll help me acquire some hours for medical school. Um, I'm trying to think of any other extracurriculars or stats that I could add in there. Um, that's basically the big things. Um, once Reggie goes, I'll probably add some more in there once I think of some more, but that's it for now.
Okay, I'm gonna go through my Common App because I have terrible memory. So my school, it is a private high school to boarding school. About one third of our students are live on campus, but I do not. I also mentioned that I do have like a partial scholarship to my private high school, so I don't pay full price for it. I took a summer course by Georgetown University during COVID summer, that first wave of COVID when it hit. It was a pre-law program. I am probably pre-law. I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of between like foreign diplomacy and law school. So we'll find out. We didn't have any rankings that I could disclose to Columbia, but since I am in Texas, they have to tell us the rankings to get into UT Austin and any other Texas Public University. So I was top 10% of my class, but I did not make the cutoff for top 6% of the class for UT Austin. So I wasn't like the top of my class. I took the full IB diploma my junior and senior year. My HLs or my higher levels are IB psychology, IB language and literature, and IB history. IB history in particular has like the lowest global average for um, as a course in general that's offered at my school, and I ended up getting a predicted 7, which was like perfect score for those who don't know IB. Um, we didn't our school doesn't offer any AP classes, so it was really between like the 4 diplomas that we have. We have a pre-medical diploma, the IB diploma, the entrepreneurship diploma, and the regular track diploma. So I ended up choosing the IB diploma because it was the most academically rigorous that I could take in my interest. My freshman year of high school, I took all honors. I took biology and chem that year, and I ended up with actually like a couple of Bs, which obviously didn't end up mattering much. So for all those kids worrying about like Bs in freshman year, I wouldn't worry too much about it. My sophomore year, which was COVID year for me, which was entirely remote, I decided not to take as many honors classes as I did because I had no idea how I was going to do with online learning, but I ended up getting like really good grades throughout the year, so it wasn't too much of an issue. And junior year is when I started the IB diploma, which was pretty difficult at first because we have to fulfill a lot of requirements. We have to do the extended essay, which is I think a 4,000 word research paper that's entirely self-run. We have to do the CAS project, which is a service project. I ended up doing a speech and debate summer camp, a 3-day intensive before nationals for the middle school team, and they ended up placing top 8 and top 16 in the United States um, after attending my intensive. Let me just keep scrolling. For the honors section, I was a PSAT National Hispanic Scholar, which was honestly a pretty big surprise to me because I didn't get a particularly high PSAT score. It kind of concerns me, like, how are my fellow Hispanics doing in Texas? Like, why did I get the scholar award? I ended up getting, like, I think a 1300 around there on my PSAT. I was number 38 top speaker in the Tournament of Champions for Lincoln Douglas. I placed top 3 in districts for mock trial. I was the first village team of that's my school, first school team to ever qualify for the state championships. I won the Viking Award, which is the most prestigious award given in my high school. It's like you're the student, it's essentially. And I also put the IB History Academic Excellence Award, which means I had the highest GPA of the course. Extracurriculars in particular, I talked about my internship, talked about speech and debate, some extra qualifications that I placed first place in districts. I qualified to state, I qualified to nationals. I placed semifinals in Newark and octafinals in Yale tournament. I was the president founder of Mock Trial. I was also the editor in chief of the Viking Press, which is the student newspaper at the school. I was managing leading a class of 20 plus students, so it's entirely student run. I had to come up with lesson plans for spanning an entire like academic year. I come up with the grading. If something is ever published and it's libel, I'm the one who's going to get sued, not my journalism advisor. So it's like a pretty big responsibility you have to take on, and I really, really loved it. I was also in MUN for a couple of years. I ended up getting best delegate for Central Texas Mall United Nations Conference and delegation of distinction for NISMUN, which is the national conference held in New York. I was the president of the Spectrum Club, which was the LGBTQ plus uh, club, and we ended up raising $200 for transgender students at the village school. I am the vice president. I was the vice president of Cyclops, which is a sort of a club that talks. It's basically called like cross-cultural leaders and problem solvers. Our main thing though was talking about voting rights, we hosted a voter registration drive, and I actually helped organize the Houston Women's March, which encompassed 10,000 people. So that was pretty cool. Let's see what else. I was also, oh, I think this is pretty big. During COVID year, I didn't take that many honors to be a coach for the middle school speech and debate team. I thought that was pretty big. I took study hall during online school where I just took the entire year to just create lesson plans. I created a website of my lectures that I made for the kids, and they ended up doing really, really well. All the middle school debaters who I coached made finals consistently of both high school and middle school tournaments. So they ended up being very competitively successful. I also gave TED Talk speech, not like the actual TED Talk, but the TED Talk club at my school. I wish like the actual TED Talk, where I talked about the Native American genocide and I presented in a room about 35 people. And then lastly, I talked about my IB cast project. Okay, I think that is all.
Oh, but now that you've said that, I did kind of forget. I forgot the honor section. I completely disregarded that for some reason. Um, they're nowhere near on to your caliber, but I mean, um, let's see. I was first in the state on the Alabama Finance Challenge, and I represented our state in the National Finance Challenge. Um, I was also first in my state for our FBLA count, first in the county for our FBLA competition. I made a Shark Tank project and created a mobile app and a robot to assist people with feeding their dog. And I won first in the county with this. Um, that's pretty much it, honestly. I didn't mention any of my school like accolades because I was kind of hesitant on how they would scale, my school's awards with another school's award. So I want to make sure that I had things on there that were either nationally recognized or that's something that you can like Google up and like immediately my name will pop up for it. Because I didn't want to leave anything up to chance, especially with my school being so like in the woods, down low. I didn't want them, to kind of be like, well, he doesn't have much, but I mean, I think I still put up a very strong application despite not putting on there any like honor rolls or things like that. Um, and I think I was also 22 in my class. I think we haven't gotten that finalized yet, but I believe that's top 10 or 15% in my class. And yeah, that's basically it.
Did you
First of all,
continue
your
doing?
accolades are amazing. Sorry. I forgot to mention
But
my GPA, which I think was the whole point of the stats. I ended up, we don't do 4.0s. I got 100.94 out of 100 weighted GPA, which is what I submitted on Common App, and then my unweighted is like a 97.5-ish.
Excellent GPAs
great.
across the board. Um, Brandon, did you continue developing the dog feeding app or?
Well, so basically how that worked is I kind of didn't. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of difficult to expand on because to do that you have to. So basically how the app worked, it was a companion app to a physical robot. So you would pair the app with the robot, and then you could like open up a camera, and then the camera would show you like where your dog is, and then you could also like press a button and it'll dispense the food out and you could see the dog eating it. You can see it doing all these different things. You can set up a schedule. Those different like automation accounts, and it was kind of a mock app because I found it extremely difficult. Like to have an app published on Apple, you have to pay $100 to even register as a developer, and then you have to pay extra to get like cloud services and things like that. So I really didn't want to go the extra mile, especially seeing as I'm not very savvy with like computer science. I take AP computer science, but I'm not like a Apple Google developer. I suck. It took me 2 months to do that, and I found it like the hardest thing I've ever done. So no, I didn't continue.
That's so cute though. Like, you can see your dog eating the food.
Yeah. Yeah, and the robot's like this box and you like poured the food in there. It looked really janky. Like it was a render of like how the robot like moved and how simulated how it would actually work. The device looked terrible, but I mean, as long as your dog gets fed, I don't think it really mattered.
Man, you guys are so smart. You
Yeah,
guys are
well,
you
uh,
guys are so hardworking and have such great accolades.
thank
That's
you.
really good to see. Um, so it is getting a little bit late now. So let's wrap up with one final question because I don't want to hold you guys up too much. Uh, the question is why Dartmouth and why Columbia? I know, Brandon,
I,
you mentioned this a little bit about, faculty ratio and
uh-huh.
things like that, but was there any other reasons as to why, Dartmouth was your ED choice?
Yes, so Dartmouth, I personally believe, but obviously I go here, so I'm gonna be a little biased. But I believe they're the best out of all the eight Ivies, and also they offer, I believe they offer the best financial aid out of all of them. So I was very grateful to receive a generous scholarship from Dartmouth, and I was kind of afraid that if I were to apply to like Columbia or like Yale, simply due to the area, it would be like absorbently expensive and I wouldn't be able to afford it. So I didn't want to like ED somewhere and then not be able to go. So Dartmouth was definitely a top pick, mainly because of their financial aid. Um, Another big thing was their anthropology, their social sciences department, and I also liked how they had like these weird, quirky traditions. Like they sort you into a house when you get there. There are different cultural houses on campus. They have their own ski slope. So I think they're one of like three in the whole country. They have their own ski slope there, and they offer discounted rates. It's also like basically on the Connecticut River, so you're looking straight over into Vermont. um, Vancouver, Canada is like right across the street. Like it's in New Hampshire, but you're also very close to like some big attractions. Um, and I think that that's also another big thing. It was also extremely far away. I wanted to go far from Alabama because I hate it here. Well, not necessarily going to say hate it, but I mean, there's not much to like here. We're last in education, last everywhere. And I just felt like, my state wasn't really prioritizing the things that really mattered. Um, so that's mainly why I chose Dartmouth, and of course for some other small things like I mentioned, the 5-to-1 student faculty ratio, being able to go to office hours every day, and their foreign language requirement, which many know about. Basically, at Dartmouth, they require you to take the one of the foreign languages offered all the way up to level three proficiency. So you're going to take, let's say for Spanish, you'll take Spanish one, two, and three. And for most of the big languages, they're going to require you to go to drill every day. And it's usually like 7:45 in the morning ish, somewhere around there. And you're required to go and recite whatever language that you chose every single day. And it increases the rate at which you learn these foreign languages, because I find that extremely difficult for me. Like Spanish, I took Spanish too. That was already hard for me, and I've already forgotten most of it. So going to Dartmouth and studying that, I think it'll kind of, I can hopefully be proficient in it. And the last thing was probably most importantly was the D plan. So Dartmouth is extremely popular, extreme probably just for this reason. You can take off certain terms out of your educational career. So if I'm not mistaken, as a freshman, you can take off any of your terms. Sophomore year, they require you to come for summer, and then the rest you could kind of schedule if you don't want to come for the winter term, if you don't want to come for fall term, if you don't want to come for spring term, if you want to come for a summer, they allow you to kind of give you free roam on your schedule. And this is really important, especially when thinking about internships. Like you don't want to be competing against 2 million people over a summer internship. When I can just take my internship in the spring and it'd be, a lot less competitive. Um, and they also had a medical school on campus, which was another big thing for me. I any school that didn't have a medical school, I automatically took them off my list because I kind of want to stick with the same college, especially going through medical school. And seeing as their pre-med program will be tailored for their medical school, I thought that it was, you know, like the best opportunity for graduates. Um, and that's mainly it.
Got your whole life planned out already. It's
Uh,
amazing.
just about.
It's awesome.
So for me, it was honestly kind of a hard decision since I was like in freshman year. I was always really dreaming of Harvard, right? But it was nothing but the fact that, it was Harvard University and everyone talked about it. Coming from like first generation immigrant to the United States, like, it's the name brand Harvard. But then as I started growing older and I was getting into like my sophomore, junior year of high school, I really loved the idea of one, getting out of Texas, two, living like in a big city that has public transportation. You have no idea how bad Texas is with public transportation. And I also wanted a place where I could interact with a lot of people and maintain the diversity that I grew up with. Because I've been at my school since kindergarten, and my school is insanely diverse. Like I think we represent about like 83 plus countries in a student body of my class being 200 people in my class or less, right? So we have people from all over the world. I would say that I don't really interact with Americans much. So I wanted to go to a diverse school, and I wanted to go to a school in a big city, and obviously like Ivy League. And so I was really between like Harvard and Columbia, as like Harvard is in Boston and Columbia is in New York City. So not I toured both of them, and I honestly found Harvard a little bit depressing. A lot of debaters end up going to Harvard University, but the atmosphere, I don't think it was it. And then I visited Columbia, and I thought it was like the best thing in the world. Like I love the campus, I love the people, everyone seems super cool. Food is also like a really big thing for me, and I found like I think it has like the best dining in like out of all the colleges. I was like, yay, like sign me up. So then I was kind of scared about living in New York because again, I come from like a suburban town in Texas. So I spent that 1 month for my UN internship in New York City, and I ended up learning a lot about myself, and I ended up falling in love with the city. I would manage myself completely alone around New York City. I was about, I think, 17 years old. I'm 18 now. And I used to take the subway late, come back to the apartment, that the Airbnb that we had. I used to like go around places. I felt like I could dress how I wanted. I was always eating good, even for cheap. There's lots of cheap places in New York. But I also knew that the only way I would be able to live in New York City was if I got into Columbia. Because Columbia has a campus in the city. It's not like NYU that, the campus is your city. You actually get like really spacious rooms, like surprisingly spacious rooms for being in New York City. Like some of them have a built-in closet, which is like that's crazy. The dorm has a built-in closet in New York City. They don't have air conditioning, so it's not all that. They don't have air conditioning some of the dorms, so it's not all that. But I really love the idea of having like most of them are singles. You get to have like a stable living place all 4 years in New York City because I could never be able to afford the rent in New York City otherwise. I don't know if like other New York universities guarantee housing, but Columbia did, and that was a big appeal to me. Another big appeal to me was it was one of the most diverse of the Ivies. They had a ton of international students, a ton of people from all over the world in terms of like countries represented. I think it was pretty similar to my own school. Um, in addition to that, I really love the Common Core. Because I did debate, I did end up reading a lot of like primary source philosophers like Kant, Nietzsche, and all of that. And I really wanted to explore that in a more academic setting. But I think what really sold me was like one, New York City. Two, I'd be able to live there in an affordable way. I got a ton of good financial aid, and they also have like a they have like a whole like meal plan that's like covers everything. You have housing that's included in tuition. You have a health insurance plan. I thought it was the only way I could like feasibly like afford to live in New York for all 4 years. Um, and I also love the idea of it being so close to the UN because I really enjoyed my internship there, and I really want to at some point like intern again in the UN. Maybe not for Paraguay, maybe for like UNICEF or UN Women. But I was really drawn to the idea of being in the international sphere because New York City is the place where all the diplomacy goes down in the United States. So that's what also drove me to choose Columbia.
I just want to add to my statement earlier. I just thought of some more things as Regi was talking. Um, Dartmouth is also like I believe one or two in undergraduate teaching out of all the Ivies, and I want to say they're like six nationally. A few years ago, they were number one and they held that title for like 20 plus years. And they recently lost it to Elon University. But out of all the Ivies, and I specifically knew I wanted to go to an Ivy, and I saw that Dartmouth had a strenuous focus on undergraduate teaching, as compared to like Harvard or Yale, which they're kind of more tailored towards their graduate schools. You think of Harvard Law, medical school. You don't really hear a lot about Harvard College. You hear Harvard University. So that's one reason why Dartmouth has stuck with Dartmouth College and not moved to a university. Even though they are a university, they have graduate schools, they want to stick to that college name because, of course, they are tailoring more towards undergraduates. And I felt like that'll be, it'll kind of be a more tight knit, community if everybody there's, all there for the same purpose, which is for undergraduate study. That's it.
You guys excited to go? Are
Yes, very.
you guys
I
excited
Wait,
to
actually
go?
do a tour and like,
oh, excited to go? Yeah, like I'm so ready, especially because I have my IB exams and I have mock
Oh,
exams, so I still have to like take 2 years worth of content and tests in May, the month I graduate. So yeah, I'm ready to. I'm ready. I'm ready to go to Columbia. Don't do
yeah,
IB.
I take like a tour like in like two weeks, 2.5 weeks. It'll be my first time going there. It's probably gonna be snowing. It's gonna be like 8 feet of snow. I'm not gonna know what to
ugh.
do because I'm in Alabama, don't get snow, and it's gonna be like 20 degrees, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Oh yeah, you're going from Alabama to
Yeah,
freezing.
Invest in a good jacket. You're gonna need a good jacket.
yeah. I've been looking and I see they're expensive, so I've been saving my funds.
Yeah, but a good one will last you like forever. So it's important to invest in a good jacket. I learned that the hard way when I was in New
Oh
York.
no, oh no. New York is like right by New Hampshire too, so they're both equally as cold.
Yeah, yeah.
It is not fun. It's not fun. Though I will say, I don't know if this is going to be the case at your guys' university, but college students just don't wear jackets. I don't know if it's something that I've noticed, but maybe it's because all the buildings tend to be so close to one another, so we're not normally outside for too long, but just don't wear jackets. I don't know. Maybe you guys will find out. You guys are in a little bit of a colder area than I am, I guess.
Yeah, hmm that's probably it.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Um, but so last question before we head out. What are you guys looking forward to in the next? I'm sure there's too much that you can look forward to besides all the typical senior things. But if there is anything, right? What are you guys looking forward to for the next 8 months before you guys step on campus? And then what are you guys looking forward to once you do get on campus? I'll do with those two questions.
I can go.
Um, oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh, so for me, I look forward to finishing the IB diploma program. Because it's been 2 hard years of a lot of work, and I'm really excited to graduate, get the diploma. They have a wall of students who got over a 40 on the IB exam, so I hope I get on that wall. But even more so, I'm excited to spend the last couple of months with my friends. I think that a lot of people in like the rush to get to college and apply and do that kind of forget that they are leaving a lot of their friends behind most of the time. Um, Most of the people, especially in Texas, who make top 6%, just end up going to UT Austin because it's the best bang for its buck. It's only 10K for in-state tuition. It's really, really, really good. It's getting increasingly more competitive the year goes on. I think there's a rumor that like next year it's going to change into like top 4% of the class gets automatically admitted to UT Austin. So it's getting more and more competitive. But I think that since I've been at the school for so long, for basically like my entire life, I'm gonna miss some of the lifelong friends I've had. I think I'm gonna miss the comfort of being in a small school. Because even though Columbia's pretty small compared to like huge public universities, I mean like my class size I think was like 180. We don't have a lot of people there. I'm also looking forward to traveling and going back home before break. I think it was a pretty big surprise for like my family and everyone else that I got into Columbia University. Not because they didn't think I could do it, but because I was like the first person in my family ever to get into a college in the United States. You know, my parents went to college, but they went to college in Mexico, where it's a lot easier to get into the top college in Mexico versus like the top college in the United States. So everyone back home was like really happy, really excited. So I can't wait to go visit them for a couple of weeks. Um, and I also can't wait because my dad's like half Italian and he wants to go to Italy this summer to sort of like reconnect with our background, where his dad was born. I've never been there, so I'm excited for that as well. Oh, and then yeah, when I'm at Columbia. So when I'm at Columbia, I'm excited mostly for like the opportunities that there are here. I mean, it is like the New York City. Like I want to get my hands on some like internships as soon as I can, cool clubs. Like I after years of
Internships.
after years of competing in mock trial and speech and debate and MUN, like I can't wait to do something real. Like something that like would genuinely impact the community, clubs that I know like really do matter besides like my own competitive success. Like I want to do stuff that helps out the community and there's like a huge Paraguayan community in New York City and I think there's like a lot of initiatives and really cool things at Columbia. I hope to win there's like a lottery ticket going on in Columbia and it's called like the Arts Initiative where you can get like Broadway shows, like tickets to Broadway shows for like free if you like win the lottery in the Initiative. So I'm excited to just explore the cultural and like artistic scene in New York City, and I'm also excited to meet like really interesting people. I don't know if Dartmouth has the same thing, but Columbia already has its admitted students page. You can only get in if you send in your ID number and your name. So they verify that everyone has gotten to Columbia, and it's like a private uh, Instagram as well. So like I'm looking through and then I see like world tap dancing champion. I'm like, wow, okay, like I want to meet the world tap dancing champion. Like that sounds super cool. Um, and just like I'm interested in meeting new people, doing cool things, and just pushing myself further.
All right. That all sounds great. Specifically, before I get to Dartmouth, I'm like I said earlier, I really want to get my CMA certification before I leave, so that I can do something impactful in New Hampshire. Then obviously I want to graduate high school first. Can't put the cart before the horse. Um, but and obviously spending time with my friends, before I go so far, it'll be extremely hard to, spend time with them if it's not like I can drive here in a weekend or, I might miss some holidays. So, spending valuable time with family and friends before I leave for so long is also really important to me. Um, Specifically at Dartmouth, there's a bunch of things I want to do, like we have first year trips coming up, and I think that's the first week in September or the second week. And I think I'm gonna do mountain biking. Um, that's the first time I'll do mountain biking. I'm scared of mountain lions and bears and stuff. I don't know if they even have bears. I'm pretty sure they have mountain lions. So I'm scared of getting eaten by a mountain lion. Um, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna be up in the mountains on campus, biking for our first year trip. Um, I'm also really surprisingly, I'm kind of like ready to try like their dining hall. Like it's not like Yale dining hall where they have a chef in there like literally making like I know y'all be seeing them TikToks of the girl like where she like shows her Yale dining food like every time. I don't think Dartmouth is like that, but I've taken a peek at their menu and like their dessert menu. They had cheesecake the other day. Then the day after that, they had like a little Danish. Like what public university is giving you cheesecake for dessert? Um, but yeah, that's and also I want to try skiing because we don't get enough snow here for me to do that. So I want to try skiing. Even though I might plummet on my face, definitely skiing. Um, and swimming in a river for my first time. Um, I've always been scared to swim in a river because of amoebas from rivers because they aren't treated. Um, Weird quirk, I know, but maybe I'll get out of my comfort zone a little bit there. And of course, meeting new people. Um, Dartmouth isn't really known for being extremely diverse, but just seeing people, meeting our new class. I've been conversing with a few of them in our Discord and on our admitted students Facebook page. Um, and I'm just ready to meet everybody.
All right.